Well, I really want to thank Senator Dodd and his staff for all the help that they have really done in terms of pulling together this briefing on International Justice Day. I also want to thank you for being here and for your interest in this topic. I'll quickly thank my colleague John Washburn from the American NGO Coalition on the International Criminal Court, who also helped pull this together, and also thank you to the Connect US Fund, who helped support this. For those of you not familiar with Citizens for Global Solutions, we are a national membership organization with some 45,000 members, supporters, activists around the country who really believe nations need to be able to work together to solve global problems that they can't resolve on their own. From climate change to nuclear proliferation to genocide to financial crises and pandemics, there's many, many problems that no nation, no matter how powerful, have the resources or capacity to resolve alone. We believe nations need to work more effectively together, to cooperate more with each other, and to have more effective international institutions to be able to address this. The International Criminal Court is one of the issues that we work on in order to achieve this vision. If you have not noticed, already got on the literature table outside, there are copies of a very short, one piece of paper fact sheet, very quick brief on the ICC. There is a much more substantive task force report that Judge Wald will talk about for the American Society on International Law. There's brand new, hot off the press up, polling data on where different African majority Muslim nations stand on the arrest warrants regarding Omar al-Bashir, as well as some information on speaker bios. So please feel free to help yourself to that either now or later. So we're here to recognize International Justice Day. The 20th century was the bloodiest century in recorded history. 174 million people were killed in genocides and mass murders at the hands of dictators, warlords, and human rights violators. And yet, too often, the United States and the international community turned a deaf ear to the victim cries for justice and accountability. On this day, 11 years ago, 150 nations met and approved the Rome Statute, the treaty that created the world's first permanent war crimes tribunal, the International Criminal Court. 7 years ago today, with 66 nations now having ratified the treaty, the Rome Statute came into force and the ICC opens its doors for business. So as of now, 109 nations have ratified the treaty, Chile being the most recent. And today we are here to discuss the court's accomplishments, its future, efforts to bring crimes of aggression under the court's jurisdiction at its 2010 review conference, and how the U.S. can engage the International Criminal Court and play a constructive role in bringing war criminals to justice. I will tell you, unfortunately, Ambassador Zaid will not be able to join us today, but he has a very good reason. His wife just gave birth to a baby daughter, so we're pleased for them. Since the ambassador won't be able to join us, I've been asked to give a short overview of the preparatory process for the court's 2010 review conference, and I'm going to do this after our panel speaks, so that way I'll just fill in any gaps that they might not have covered, because I know you'd much rather hear from them than hear from me. So let me right now introduce our very esteemed panel, and they'll be able to give you much more detail on this issue than I. But before I do that, let me just one more brief overview of the court, just to put it in perspective. The International Criminal Court is a court of last resort. It takes cases when nations either do not have the capacity or will not try these cases themselves. Its jurisdiction is very limited. It covers cases dealing with genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity that are committed on the territory of nations that have ratified the statute, or by citizens of nations that have ratified the statute, or by cases that are referred to the court by the UN Security Council. And that is the whole breadth of the court. It only has jurisdiction on acts that happened after July 17th, 2002, when the treaty came into force. So anything that happened prior to that would not be in the court's jurisdiction either. So just that as a very quick overview. Let me introduce our speakers in the order in which they will present. First, to my left immediately is Patricia Wald. She is an influential American judge and a chair of the American Society for International Law Task Force on the International Criminal Court. During the Carter administration, she was the Assistant Attorney General for Legislative Affairs before being appointed to the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit, where she served as a judge from 1986 to 1991. 1979 to 1991. Okay. Upon retirement, she knows her bio much better than I do. Upon retirement from the court, she represented the U.S. at the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia. Later, she was appointed to the Iraq Intelligence Commission in 2004. Judge Wald also currently sits on the board of directors of the Open Society Justice Initiative and the Mental Disability Rights International. To her left is Todd Lindberg. Todd serves as a research fellow at the Hoover Institution. He has written many books on foreign policy, including The Political Teachings of Jesus, Bridging the Foreign Policy Divide. He's currently co-authoring a new book on the ICC called Means to an End, U.S. International Interest in the International Criminal Court. He's a contributing editor of the Weekly Standard and can often be heard as an analyst on National Public Radio. Todd was an expert consultant on the international institutions on the Albright-Cohn Genocide Prevention Task Force and also served on the Gingrich-Mitchell UN Reform Task Force as well. So he's quite familiar with international institutions and also the relationship between them and the United States, and we're very pleased he is here as well. To Todd's left is Ben Ferencz. Ben is an American lawyer who served as a prosecutor at the Nuremberg trials and has been an advocate for human rights in the International Criminal Court. Towards the end of World War II, he helped to liberate German concentration camps including Buchenwald, Dachau, Mauthausen. And after the war in Nuremberg, he served as a chief prosecutor at the trial of 22 defendants who were charged with murdering over 1 million people. At the age of 27, it was his first case. All of the defendants were convicted. Since World War II, he has been involved in setting up programs to help Nazi victims, as well as working to establish the International Criminal Court. He has authored too many books and articles to mention all, but I'll mention two. His 1994 text, New Legal Foundations for Global Survival, Security Through the Security Council, is my personal gold standard on UN reform proposals. And when published, Senator Patrick Moynihan recommended that, quote, it should be read by those who despair of finding any useful steps forward from a world of anarchy and ethnic turmoil, close quote. He also co-authored a little book called Planethood that I read in the late 80s, and for me, began the personal journey that has brought me here today. So I'm very pleased to have all of our panelists here today, and pleased that you and they can join us here on International Justice Day. So, Judge Wald, let me turn over to you.